But after being in the hospital for 3 days, Fat Ass 25 was eagerly seeking a return to normal after 3 days in the after 3 nights in the hospital. But the White House he arrived home to on Monday with dramatic and reckless flourish has changed drastically since he was airlifted off the South Lawn at the end of the first of last week. Instead of a bustling hive of pre-election activity, the West Wing has become a breeding ground for the coronavirus contagion. At least 11 of the fat ass's aides or allies have either contracted the virus or, in the case of his daughter wife Ivanka, are now working from home. Entire suites of offices sit vacant as Fat Ass 45's aides work to isolate him and the residence and out of the West Wing. A new aura of mistrust was settling in as several aides raised questions about whether they had been recklessly put in harm's way over the past week. Accusations of mismanagement, directed mainly at White House Chief of Staff dumbass Mark Meadows, have flown amid one of the gravest scrotal crises in a generation. An absence of robust contract tracing efforts caused ripples of concern as testing and mask-wearing norms were being second-guessed. None of that anxiety was allayed when Fat Ass 45 arrived back to the White House on Monday. His first act after striding up the South Protocol steps was to rip off his mask and stuff it back into his pocket, even though he remains infected with the coronavirus and could potentially be infecting any people nearby. He was then seen going back out onto the balcony and re-entering so a camera crew could shoot his entrance. He says, we're going back to work, yeah, but you technically don't work at all. You just sit on your fat ass all day watching faux news and golfing. He basically, we're going to be out front. Fat Ass 45 said in a videotaped message upon his return as your leader, as your failed leader. He's like, I had to do that, and there was no danger to it, but I had to do it. Yeah, being a failed leader is what you're best at. Though 4 hours earlier, his doctors conceded he was not yet out of the woods in his fight against the coronavirus. Fat Ass 45 framed the disease as in the past. Now I'm better, and maybe I'm immune. No, you're not better. You're still a fucking fat ass. I don't know, but don't let it dominate your lives. Yeah, tell that to the 210,000 people that are fucking dead, you fat ass. In the White House's residence where he was speaking without a mask, an already slimmed down staff has been reduced even further after the fat ass and skank both came down with the coronavirus. At least one staffer who is military personnel directly assigned to support the fat ass in the Oval Office of the President tested positive over the weekend, according to a person familiar with the matter. As Fat Ass 45 returned back to the White House, a supply of medical gowns, goggles, and respirator masks have been secured for use by his health and security teams, and potentially resident staffers should and potentially resident staffers should they need to come into a close proximity to the fat ass. In the hours after he arrived, a White House employee was seen sanitizing the press briefing room wearing a full white suit with a hood, gloves, and protective eyewear. And a temporary suite of offices had been arranged on the ground floor of the executive mansion adjacent to the White House medical suite, according to a person familiar with the plans. But Fat Ass 45's working space was adjusted both in the interest of constantly monitoring the self-convalescing Fat Ass and in the hopes of keeping him out of the West Wing where staffers are contending with the growing coronavirus outbreak. Fat Ass 45 hoped that his return to the White House might signal his readiness to move on from what appeared, at least in his doctor's descriptions, to be a serious case of a disease that has killed more than 210,000 Americans. Don't be afraid of the COVID, and don't let it dominate your life. Like I said, tell that to the 210,000 people that are fucking dead under your fat ass watch. Even though his doctors had described worrying symptoms and he was treated with a combination of experimental therapies unavailable to nearly anyone else. The situation here, inside the building, was only growing more fraught in the hours before and after he returned. An active coronavirus patient himself, Fat Ass 45 is still in uncharted territory, according to his doctor. After receiving an onslaught of experimental treatments and therapies, a large corps of the political and resident staffers, already on edge after numerous potential spreader events, now must contend with the contagious squatter in chief, who is eager to demonstrate his ability to demonstrate his ability to fail at every cost. For now, Fat Ass 45 won't be returning to the West Wing, or at least that is the plan. While Fat Ass 45 has office space in his personal residence on the third floor of the White House, the temporary offices in the map room and the diplomatic reception room will provide closer access to his physicians and medical equipment. The map room where Fat Ass 45 prepared for last week's debate and where he has rehearsed his State of the Union speeches is directly next door to the medical suite, which includes a reception area, an exam room, and Dr. Sean Connolly's office. The diplomatic reception room is just down the hall. The medical offices have been likened to a small urgent care, and in normal times are used by staffers for first aid or to retrieve over-the-counter medication, but the facilities can also be used in emergency to perform some types of a surgery or administer urgent aid. On Tuesday evening, the fat ass will receive a fifth and final intravenous dose of an antiviral remdesivir in the White House. Guidelines from the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention say that people infected with the coronavirus should isolate from others for at least 10 days after the symptoms appear. Though FAT 45 has blatantly disregarded recommendations from the CDC over the course of the pandemic, few believe that FAT 45 could be prevented from staging more photo ops like he did on Sunday, when he emerged from the confines of Walter Reed in the black SUV to greet his inbred trailer park while for collecting supporters standing on the roadside nearby. Afterwards, Secret Service agents told CNN the episode demonstrated a disregard by the fat ass for their health and safety. He continued the practice on Monday when he arrived back to the White House after saluting the helicopter and walking indoors without a mask. Fat ass 45 could be seen returning outside with several people and a camera crew to apparently reshoot his entrance into the house. When he returns to pretending to work on Tuesday, which is Alice have loudly proclaimed that he's supposedly eager to do, Fat ass 45 won't have as many familiar faces around him. His daughter, wife, and senior advisor Ivanka is working from home this week, according to an aide, out of an abundance of caution. On Monday, the White House declined to say how many staffers were isolated because of their exposure to press secretary Kayleigh McEnamo, senior advisor Hope Hicks, or the fat ass himself. Fat ass 45's personal assistant Nick Luna and 2 press aides have also tested positive. All of them are remaining at home. The rapid spread of the disease among Fat ass 45's aides has prompted an intense backlash among staffers, who have complained that they're being kept in the dark about how White House leadership plan to deal with this outbreak. That's because they don't have a plan. The bungled response to the coronavirus outbreak in the West Wing has been led by Meadows, who did not email his staff over the weekend to inform them of protocols despite the fat ass's hospitalization. Instead, staff received no new guidance about workplace practices until Sunday night, and multiple White House officials expressed private frustration that Meadows spent the weekend acting more like the fat ass's friend than the chief of staff, which technically Fat ass 45 doesn't have any friends. On Monday, the White House defended its practices despite the growing number of aides who have tested positive. We have been in the pandemic for many months, Deputy Press Secretary Brian Morgenstern told reporters at the White House. We know what to do when someone gets sick. We reassess. Has anybody been in close contact? Do they really need to get another test? Do they need to work remotely? That's what we need. That's what we're seeing. But still, the aides often follow the example set by their superiors when it comes to wearing masks, working remotely, or social distancing at the office. Several officials told CNN that they don't wear masks in meetings unless their bosses do, a pattern that has reached several other agencies in addition to the West Wing. Until he was diagnosed with COVID, Fat ass 45 was seen frequently in a mask and mocked others for wearing them. He instructed reporters to remove them during news conferences and has bristled in meetings when attendees try to speak through a face covering. Now, any staff that meets with Fat ass 45 in person will have to wear full protective gear. How else the White House was planning to ensure staffers when Fat ass 45 returned wasn't clear. We've worked together with our infectious disease experts to make sure recommendations for how to keep everything safe done at the White House for the fat ass and those around him. Conley, the White House physician, told reporters at Walter Reed on Monday that we're looking at where he's going to be able to carry out his duties, office space. I'll just say that it's in line with everything we've been doing upstairs for the last several days. Pressed on how his team would keep Fat ass 45 safely quarantined, Conley refused to elaborate on that. I wish I could go into that more, but I just can't. You could have, you just chose not to. The lack of clarity did not improve the impression that Fat ass 45 wasn't taking seriously his status as a carrier of a highly contagious and potentially deadly virus. He was sharply criticized for staging the photo op outside Walter Reed, which several Secret Service agents privately said put their colleagues at unnecessary risk. The internal questions and the fierce criticism surrounding Fat ass 45's drive around Walter Reed are being aimed at Tony Ornato, who is the Deputy Chief of Staff for Operations at the White House. He signed off on the decision at the request of the fat ass, a person familiar with the matter told CNN. He would never tell the fat ass no, a person familiar with the matter said. That's why the fat ass loved him. The Deputy Chief of Staff for Operations, or DCOS, as it's known outside the White House, is a remarkably powerful role in the West Wing that oversees everything from the medical unit to scheduling and advanced matters to the White House military office. Every public movement by the fat ass and many behind-the-scenes details are the discretion of this role. Arnaldo is a longtime Secret Service official who was assigned to Deputy Chief of Staff position last December. He's technically still a USSS employee, but his on temporary assignment to the West Wing was seen as a highly unusual elevation at the time. The fat ass's new detail leader feels neutered in his role, a person familiar with the matter said. Because Ronaldo oversees everything inside, Ronaldo has been seen by some over the last several months as not taking coronavirus seriously because he is now effectively in a political role and is close to the fat ass. So if you like the video, give the video a like and subscribe to my channel, Ryan Van Mike, and also hit the notification bell so that you'll be notified when a new video comes out, and thanks for listening.